Rolling Stone has finally gone too far. Welcome back to Taste Like Music. Joe here. The special solo report. But they finally done it. The bastards blew it up. It being the last shred of their legacy. Last week, the once venerable music periodical Rolling Stone made what is perhaps their most egregious change of their top 500 albums of all time yet. Infiltrating the once prestigious list in this recent update include Renaissance by Beyonce, the 71st greatest album of all time, Folklore by Taylor Swift, the 170th greatest album of all time, African Giant by Burna Boy, the 330th greatest album of all time, SOS by SZA, now the 351st greatest album of all time, Sour by Olivia Rodrigo, 358, Un Verano Sin Ti by Bad Bunny, 430, Demon Days by Gorillaz, 437, Red by Black Uhruru, 466, and Harry's House by Harry Styles, clocking it at number 491. No matter how you slice it, this is a pretty suspect list of ads, most of them being far too new for their legacies to really be established. Rolling Stone has done everything in its power to try and burnish the reputations of Taylor Swift and Beyonce. So seeing them on this list, not really a surprise, even if their placements are far too high. Folklore, a mediocre album that saw Taylor Swift teaming up with the most boring indie rockers in existence, the National Boys, for an album that will surely go down in history as one of the most hilariously overrated, just ever. It wasn't that good. The only reason people thought it was cool, well, I think everything Taylor Swift does is cool. Teaming with Berninger and Dresner, I think they pretty much killed their reputations in 2023. Renaissance, that's a great album, but Rolling Stone already had Lemonade, an album people like to talk about far more than they like to listen to, way too high at number 32. It's laughable. Naming Renaissance as the 71st best album in music history. A year after it came out, that's nearly as egregious, despite it being my third favorite of 2022. The other placements are high enough to escape too much scrutiny, but Sour, which is a largely one note, 3.5 star album at best, shouldn't be anywhere near a top 500 list. It's not even close to being as good as Olivia's record from last year, Guts. Much more diverse, much better record. SOS, which came out in 2022, despite it winning a bunch of 2023 lists, shouldn't be a 351 probably. Maybe wait at least another year before crowning it. Bad Bunny, I'm sorry, he sucks. His music is terrible, but at least he has some claim as a reggaeton giant, one of the top artists in the genre. Maybe I just don't like the genre. Still, it's a little high. Harry's House just replaced Fine Line, so whatever. Both albums are clearly stupid choices for their top 500 list, but Rolling Stone is just extra thirsty for Harry, and at least it's near the end of the list where it doesn't really matter. I've never heard African Giant by Burna Boy, and I don't know enough about Black Uhuru to make a judgment about Red, which would be the second Red on the list. I don't think King Crimson's Red made it, but be damn sure Taylor Swift's Red is on that list. It's clearly another bold strike for the tenets of optimism as the dominant musical ideology of our time. And with these additions, there has to be subtractions. Logic would dictate that Rolling Stone would simply remove the 492nd to 500 albums from this list to make room for the new ones. But no, that would make far too much sense. Instead, Rolling Stone has managed to make the most inexplicable decisions possible about what to remove, other than one. And that would be Fine Line by Harry Styles. You're just swapping in a newer Harry Styles album. Makes total sense, actually. But the rest, not so much. You have The Beach Boys Today by the Beach Boys, obviously, which was number 270 in 2003 and fell to 466 in 2020. Now it's gone. It's just gone. You now have Only Wild Honey at 410 and Pet Sounds at number two, representing one of the greatest bands of all time. Seems a little ridiculous to only have them represented twice on the top 500. Also, getting the axe Screamadelica by Primal Scream, which is a cool album. I don't have a, I don't have a ton of problems with that one leaving, but for what replaced it, I I think Screamadelica is a better album. You got For Your Pleasure by Roxy Music, which I kind of like that one leaving. Not really, because I like Roxy Music. And even though it's not my favorite Roxy Music album, it's pretty ridiculous to drop it off the list when you consider it was all the way up to 351st on their last top 500 album update in 2020. How do you just remove the 351st best album of all time? Doesn't make any sense. My Aim is True by Elvis Costello, which was all the way up to 168 in 2003, down to 430 in 2023. Costello, one of the many white guys whose legacy's just been wiped out, devastated in all these new updates from Rolling Stone. Had four albums in 2003, just one in 2023. Also, Hitting the Road, you got Goo, Sonic Youth, their only good album. Went from 358 to just completely off the list, just disappeared. Goo is gone. Don't know how they decided that one needed to go. You got Disraeli Gears, which was 112th in 2003. It was 170th in the last update in 2020. Now it's just gone. It has to be some kind of reaction to Eric Clapton's political bent these past 3 years. But Cream now has zero albums, none, in the Rolling Stone Top 500. Seems a little ridiculous for how influential and good that band was, but they're gone. See you later. Another one here that sort of makes sense because its inclusion didn't really make sense in the beginning unless you were like a, college kid in the early 2000s that smoked a bunch of weed because you always had this one on. Legend, the best of Bob Marley by Bob Marley and the Wailers. It was 48th in 2020. It's not on the list anymore. And maybe they didn't want any more greatest hits albums. I guess that makes sense. They did move Exodus up, I guess, as a way to make up for it, but pretty hilarious to just completely disappear a top 50 album of all time, just straight off your list. Rolling Stone just doesn't even acknowledge its existence anymore. And finally, maybe the most egregious example, you have Aftermath by the Rolling Stones. Nearly a top 100 album in 2003. It dropped down to 330 in 2020, but now it's just gone. It's off the list. It got replaced. It didn't get bumped to 331 or 340. It's just gone. You have to ask the question, what did Rolling Stone do? Just have the couple of guys that had this, in the top 10, 20 whacked? How did it just disappear off the face of the list? Question, what the hell are we doing here, Rolling Stone? Did they just randomly assign numbers to this new batch, throw darts to determine who fell off? I mean, I know the 2020 update was pretty upsetting to a lot of people. But it was a better representation of the current state of music. They're always going to try and suck up to the new guys. Getting rid of Jan Wenner, also a good move. He always sucked. I couldn't bear to see any more five-star U2, Bruce, and Bob Dylan reviews. But now they've clearly abandoned any last morsel of sanity with this latest update. I may have said earlier that Rolling Stone was in danger of destroying what little legacy they had left. But let's be honest, Rolling Stone hasn't done a single thing of interest or relevance in a long time. Nobody knows who writes for them other than Rob Sheffield, who's basically just made a name for himself trying to be the cool senior writer who loves the new pop scene. They've been suckling at the teat of the few remaining pop mega celebrities for years now anyway. So, throwing another Taylor Swift, another Beyonce in the top 100, the top 125. We shouldn't expect anything less, or is it more? Shouldn't expect anything more from them than what they're giving us now with this new update. But I think this is the nail in the coffin. They've finally gone too far. This recent update, the stealthily done update, I think is the final nail in the coffin for Rolling Stone. All right, so what did you think of this latest update? Does Rolling Stone have any shred of credibility left, or did that leave town with their 2020 update, or even earlier? I mean, it could have been a while for them. Leave your comments in the comments section. Tell me what you think. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel. For God's sakes, what are you waiting for? And check back daily because we got all sorts of content coming out left and right here. We'll see you next time.